Good evening and welcome to the Township of Woolwich Special Council meeting on January 14th, 2025. Uh, Welcome to everyone viewing online and everyone here today in the gallery. Is always exciting when we get actual people in the gallery. So that's nice. I'll start with roll call of council. I'm Mayor Schwarz. I'm present and chairing this meeting. Councillor Bryant.
Present.
Councillor Burgess.
Present.
Councillor Cadeau.
Present.
Councillor Grant.
Present.
Councillor Schwint.
Present.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to reconvene and open? Moved by Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Bryant. All those in favor? And that's carried. The land on which we live and meet has been here from time immemorial, and the Indigenous people have lived here from time immemorial. And so I thank the Chinatan, also called the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee people who have lived here and cared for this land and who continue to share and steward this land with us. May we together learn to care for each other, our flora and fauna, and the land that sustains us. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none, we do have an item to come forward from close tonight, and that is a motion to appoint Ellen Siebel-Achenbach to the Woolwich Heritage Committee. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Bryant, Councillor Burgess, all those in favor, and that is carried. Thank you. We also have two delegations this evening, and before we get started, I need to remind delegates of the guidelines. On this section of the agenda, delegations have 7 minutes to speak. After you speak, please wait for questions from council, and once there are no further questions, you may return to your seat. You can leave anytime you wish, or you're more than welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting. So the first item is a potential renaming of Menno Street. And I don't think there's I don't think there's any staff presentation first. No.
Not for that one, Mayor Schwarz, no.
Okay.
Just one note, our timer is not working, so I will be using my phone tonight and I will give a 1 minute warning with my finger.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll welcome Arnold Drung, President of Conestoga Meats.
Thanks very much, Mayor Schwarz and council members for allowing me to present tonight on behalf of our company. We've recently been made aware of the potential to rename Menno Street in front of our company's facility. This will have a dramatic negative effect for our company and its business, and so we're respectfully requesting that the name change not be implemented. Just a little bit of background, we are a federally registered and licensed food processing plant. We are overseen by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, who has ongoing presence at our facility. With that registration come many obligations, as well as the right to export meat out of the province and out of the country, and we currently export to over 30 countries. We're a large business. We have about 1,400 employees, and our address is obviously important to the business, and it's used in many different ways and on many different materials. We have challenges with this change in three specific areas. One is with regard to export markets and the licensing for those export markets. I won't go into detail on that, but it is significant. Then we have other regulatory impacts as well. So our address is our calling card with many different agencies that we have to interact with, and the changes or the change that's being contemplated would impact that. On top of this, we have numerous materials, in particular packaging materials and promotional materials that carry the company's address. That would all have to be changed, and that comes at a significant cost to the company. To summarize, Conestoga is a major employer and a taxpayer in the township. We've always tried to be a good citizen. We're not asking that our address be maintained for frivolous reasons. It's costly, and while it might seem to just be a minor inconvenience, the size and nature of our business will make it quite difficult and costly. So based on this, we're requesting that the Menno Street address in Woolwich be maintained for our company. Thank you. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Council, what questions do you have? Councillor Schwint.
Thank you, Mayor Schwarz, and thanks for the presentation. For staff, this wouldn't be without precedent, would it? I'm going to use the example of Southfield Drive, which would have been the logical extension of Whippoorwill many years ago. And for similar reasons we kept the name of Southfield versus extending Worker World.
Through you, Madam Chair, no, this would be a possible alternative. We could rename a different portion of Menno Street that has currently 15 residents. And then we would just pay the cost of that, and we would go through a public consultation process with those homeowners.
Yeah, did you want to follow up on that? No. Councillor Burgess.
Through you, Mayor Shantz, the delegate, I just want to thank you for coming and sharing your concerns. I think you've made a good case for reason to keep the naming for your company there. I'm just wondering if staff would be able to give a little bit of history on why we're looking at a name change.
Yes, we can do that. Can we share the image on the screen? So it may be a little difficult to see, but what's happening here is there's a dotted line that's going across the property, and I don't know, Tanya, if you're able to show with your pointer where it says Ottawa Street Extension. Oh. So the Ottawa Street Extension is coming over from the city of Kitchener, and it's going into the township of Woolwich, and then you can follow through that line, goes right across the township in front of Conestoga Meets and to Schwarz Station Road. So that's the reason for the renaming of the street in front of Conestoga Meets. The existing Menno Street, you'll see there's a highlighted area in yellow where there's 15 residential properties. We'll be keeping the name Menno Street, and then it will be going into a crescent in the new Mad West subdivision. So that was the plan for the renaming of Menno Street, and that was the reason why the portion in front of Conestoga Meets would be renamed to Ottawa Street. So if council chooses to direct staff to look at renaming the other portion of Menno Street where the 15 residents are, we can engage with those residents to rename that portion of the street, and would be responsible for those costs to rename over there. Then we could continue Menno Street in front of Conestoga Meets, and then Ottawa Street would terminate either at Fountain, or it could, with a future road, it could actually end up going south and continuing at Lonsdale.
Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you to staff. You mentioned that if we did go ahead and renamed the current Menno Street, it would be at the expense of the township. I'm wondering what expenses we would incur and approximately how much that would cost.
Through you, Mayor Shantz, it would be $110 per property for the 15 properties.
Thank you. Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. Pardon me, through you to staff. I would like to direct staff to proceed with investigating the implications of renaming Menno on the other side of Fountain Street where the existing 15 homes are, please.
So starting a public consultation
Yes.
process. And so that's a motion. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Grant, is there any further discussion? Councillor Cadeau.
Yeah, again, to staff, have we opened conversation with the developers in this area to see if this would be problematic for them, if it would delay any development in the area?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, we have not initiated this conversation with the Mad West development or the existing homes that are on the old Menno Street. No.
Can you tell us would be to engage with the residents and Mad West too, I suppose?
Yes, so Mad West would be an easier conversation. That would be a phone call and an explanation of what's going on and a rename on the street and the draft plan. So easier process. With the 15 residential properties, we would reach out to them, to each of them individually to have the conversation, and then probably set up some kind of a discussion, open house type of opportunity where we could talk about options and implications and the process to change their addresses on their individual properties. Okay. And then we would come back to council with a recommendation to go with that alternative. Staff would.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, Arnold. Okay, our next item on the agenda is ReForest Woolwich, and Ms. MacArthur, there you are. It says in person on my sheet.
Yes, that was a slight change that I have not shared with
Welcome.
council. Thank you. Mayor and council, I will be presenting the staff report virtually, and I would note that Ann Roberts, our environmental coordinator, is in the gallery tonight, and happy to answer any questions once the delegation has presented. So as you're aware, there's a staff report before you that is looking to provide council's endorsement and support for the ReForest Woolwich initiative. The delegates will be speaking tonight on the exciting, proposal that they're presenting for tree planting initiatives, specifically aiming to increase the township's greening canopy over the next 10 years. This initiative is substantial and will include planting projects and initiatives in all areas of the township, both on municipal property and also including industrial, commercial, and industrial residential areas. I think it would be important to note that work will continue on municipal properties guided by Trees for Woolwich, and that is apt to include additional collaborations with ReForest Woolwich as it unfolds. I wanted to highlight that the report speaks to a confirmed donation of $75,000 per year for the next 2 years, and I understand that statement needs to be corrected. And note that it is actually $125,000 in confirmed donations over the next 10 years, which is really amazing and will go a long way towards partner funding for grants and really positively impacting greening efforts. As highlighted, and the deputation will speak more in more detail about what the work of ReForest Woolwich will do, which will build on work undertaken with Rural Roadside, among other projects, led by Inga Reddy and Mark Schwarz. Build on the Elmira Greening Report that was endorsed in 2018. And it will also work with us as we unfold the Woolwich Climate Action Implementation Plan to reduce the township's greenhouse gas emissions. So the report was also seeking support for a grant application, and I thought it might be helpful to speak briefly on this grant and why the amended resolution is necessary and before you tonight. So the grant application, which they'll speak to tonight, is related to the planting of trees. A pre-application has been submitted in December, and staff would note that we have no concerns with the content of the pre-application. The full application is due to the program by February 5th. That application does require a resolution from council by that application date in order for it to be successful. So essentially what we're saying, and the group is asking, is for us to demonstrate that to the funder, which is the Feds, FCM, and the Green Municipal Grant, that the township and council understands that this project would utilize some of the funding that is available to Woolwich for Growing Canada's Community Canopies program. So the money is specifically earmarked for planting trees in the township that are not part of a normal township planting process. As noted, there is a recommendation in the staff report before you tonight, and I think there's some minor adjustments that I wanted to walk through before the delegations speak and before council has any discussion on that. So point number 1 of the recommendation is to endorse the ReForest Woolwich initiative in principle. Staff are fully supportive, and I look forward to working with the group on this initiative. The second request is for council to consider having a member sit as a voting member on the ReForest Woolwich Board of Directors. The third one is to support ReForest Woolwich application to the Green Municipal Fund. An alternative recommendation has been provided in the package, which council or which staff do support and can speak to if council wants more information to support that. Staff would note that we as a township are unlikely to apply for this grant funding in the future due to the level of technical expertise required. And we're really grateful for the work that they've put into this application. And it is something that we as a township may explore at the time of Arthur Street reconstruction. The fourth bullet point is consider a request for one-time grant funding during the 2025 budget deliberations. Just in chatting with the group in the last few days, they have suggested that they aren't asking for that at this time, that further conversations will be held and requests for funding may come forward during another time through another staff report or deputation or during future budget deliberations. So those are my comments on the report. I'm happy to answer any questions or happy to answer after the deputation.
Are there any questions for Ms. MacArthur now before we hear from the delegate? No? Okay, thanks. Then I will welcome Rebecca Schwarz, Jessica Peever, and Kevin Thomason from ReForest Woolwich, and I see Inga Rennie there too. You're on that committee too? I thought you were. Your name wasn't on my list here. I go by my list. Welcome, and you have 7 minutes to present.
Thank you to you, Mayor Schwarz, and also to all of council for participating in this update this evening. I want to say a big thank you to staff who have been working with our group very diligently to provide us with the information needed to bring forward to you today. So thank you to Ann MacArthur, Ann Roberts, and others throughout the township. The purpose of me speaking to you this evening is to provide you a bit of an update. Last time I spoke to you, I was representing WEAC, Woolwich Environmental Advisory Committee's support of this project. And now we're, a couple steps down the road, and I wanted to bring this to council again so that you have a firm idea of what it is that we're proposing. So at this point, ReForest Woolwich has been registered as a nonprofit organization. We are still waiting to register for charitable status, which will allow us to accept donations. The nonprofit organization reports to a board of directors. Local environmental leaders like Inga and Mark and Kevin have kindly volunteered their time to put this organization together. We are also recruiting volunteer forest stewards to be the hands and feet of this organization in the community going forward. And we are going to be working with all sorts of landowners throughout Woolwich Township, both residential, industrial, commercial. We want trees to be everywhere in this township. Our goals are to increase the tree canopy coverage, to engage and educate private landowners, and to provide pathways for people to engage with regreening our entire township. Our pre-application for the GMF that Annie had mentioned was accepted on December 20th of 2024. And so as we move to this next stage in the deliberations, we want to make it clear what we're requesting from Township Council, which is your support at stepping into the next phase of that application to the Green Municipal Fund. Our board of directors, we have some pretty photos up there, and we have one space where we are hoping that somebody from Township Council will volunteer to step into. This will help the organization and the township work most closely together and keep us really synced up on this project, which is very big, very ambitious, and we want to make sure that we are working in lockstep with the township and supporting the goals and vision that this council has for the township. Our planting strategy, this is the very, very brief version, is to have forest stewards who are responsible for individual neighborhoods throughout the township. Those forest stewards will be champions for planting trees on every scrap of land that they can find. And the municipal planting, as we may find later, gets approved by township staff, would be a key part of that, but we want to start with getting trees into the hands of residential landowners, industrial landowners, and commercial landowners. There have already been a few pilot projects. You can see photos from some roadside trees projects, which you're all familiar with, I'm sure, and from some attempts at planting trees in schoolyards. As part of this program, we also want to design a maintenance strategy to support the ongoing health of trees in our township. We don't want to just plant them and walk away. We want there to be a robust plan in place for the ongoing health of these trees, and then potentially as the lifetime of these trees ends, for removal and replacement. So that's an important part of our strategy. Our funding, we already have 30%, almost 30% committed by Earthscape Catalyst, which is the funding that Annie was talking about, the $125,000 a year for the next 10 years. That makes up a significant portion of our overall budget for the project. You can see the orange slice of the pie there is what we are applying to the Green Municipal Fund for. That's another 30%. We anticipate that corporate donations will make up another approximately 30%, with smaller amounts hoped for from private donations and potentially from future funding from the township. The total cost of the project is about $4.85 million, and we anticipate that the value that this will bring to the township as these trees mature and start to provide greenhouse gas mitigation, stormwater recapture, is going to be around $150 million by 2070. So that's a really good return on investment for the township. This timeline I've put together, and folks can investigate it more closely as they have time or wish to. We would hope for contributions from the township. We ballparked around $400,000 over the next 15 years, primarily for the ongoing maintenance and potential replacement costs of trees, not during the planting stage. Private donors will also make a large portion of our funding. And I just wanted to touch a little bit more on this federal grant. As Annie MacArthur had said, this is a portion of money that we are applying to from the Green Municipal Fund, and there are other programs that are eligible to apply as they have time and staff available, but we've invested quite a bit of time in this application. And we are applying for $200,000 this year, and then every 2 years we'll be applying again for further funding from this grant to plant more trees. So these are the big simple points that we're asking for to support our application to the GMF, to participate in the Board of Directors, and to consider for the future moderate funding. And that's everything.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you who and the work that you're doing. You know, I sometimes say that the best thing government can do is empower people and then get out of the way. So I hope we can get out of your way and let you do what you're passionate about. Questions for the delegate? No. Councillor Burgess.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Schwarz. Thanks for all the work you guys do, the time, the money, the sweat equity, and everything for making Woolwich green. It's much appreciated. Just on the funding side of things, you touched on it briefly, because most of these trees will be going on private land or businesses. Is there much upkeep for the township through maintenance or anything like that?
Thank you, through the mayor, to Councillor Burgess. There's not direct cost necessarily to the township for upkeep of trees on private land. That's absolutely correct. What we are hoping to establish in the future is incentives or initiatives to encourage private landowners to keep trees healthy and present on their properties. There's been discussion about having, you know, tree cutting bylaws and stuff like that, but those really are only as effective as enforcement, which is really difficult for a township of our size. So this is kind of the alternative to that, education and engagement, to try and encourage people to see the benefits that trees bring to them.
Anyone else? Councillor Grant.
Thank you, and thank you, Rebecca, for coming to council and speaking on this project. I know that a key part of your grant application is council support. I'm just wondering, with the biannual participation, would you be looking for renewal of council support of that, or is it kind of a once and done deal?
Thank you through the mayor to you, Councillor Grant. We don't fully know yet. There are all sorts of reporting requirements through this grant process that we're still kind of, oh, you know, I didn't expect that to come back and haunt us 2 years later, but we're putting in the work to try and establish all of those things. It could be that I'll be back here again in 2 years asking you to support another motion, and hopefully I'll be back sooner than that with more updates on the project.
Thank you, that's fair. We can do our best to get out of the way, but our other partners may.
The rest of
Yeah.
of us get in the way. Yeah, thanks. Councillor Burgess.
Through you, Mayor Shantz, this one would be for staff, I think, if I may. Tree planting on municipal land, how is that determined? Does council have a say, just like it was gonna be in a park on green space and stuff like that? How much of a say do we have?
Director MacArthur.
Thanks. I'll start, and I don't know if Anne wants to come up. You know, she oversees the planting program with the Parks Department and in partnership with Trees for Woolwich. I think there are a couple things that we look for, and I think in working with those committees, they bring forward some ideas of where to plant and the amount to plant, and then those planting plans are discussed with either the committee and or staff and recommended. So as part of our annual work plan that is discussed. I guess if we don't bring those directly to council, those kind of day-to-day interactions, but I guess if council wants to put some parameters or have some discussion on that, I think we'd be open to hearing. Or I guess council could also direct the committee, the Trees for Woolwich Committee through Tweak to evaluate and bring back some recommendations. I think the second thing I would comment on is, you know, the master plan did speak to the deficit in parkland. So while we're not opposed to planting and further naturalization in parks throughout the township, I think we just want to be mindful and balance where we decide to plant and make sure it's appropriate and successful.
Okay, Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you to the delegation. You do mention, and it is in the staff report, consideration for grant funding, albeit not in 2025. Is there any risk of this initiative falling through if the township didn't come to the table with that 8%? If we came in at 6%, could that be feasible? 4%? Is there a magic number, I guess is what I'm asking. Is it that 8%? Can you kind of offer some insight as to why you landed there?
Through the mayor to Councillor Cadeau, thank you for the question. I don't think that there's a specific magic number, especially when we're looking at the outset of a project. It's very hard to estimate what we're going to see come through from corporate or private donations. That being said, I do think that we want the buy-in of Township Council at least as much as we would want, you know, commitment to future funds. We want to see this project succeed. I'm sure you all want to see this project succeed too. And I think it's more just a matter of recommending that we consider this as, you know, an important budget item for future years. I was talking to Annie, there may be environmentally flagged funds that this project may qualify for, but that can be a 2026 question as well.
Okay. Anything else? Councillor Cadeau.
This is more for interest's sake, but when you're saying that you're intending to increase the tree canopy cover for urban and peri-urban areas, what specifically is that? You know, if we're out in rural areas, are they precluded then? Like, can you kind of specify?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the mayor. There is a lot of split responsibilities when it comes to how forests are managed and protected in the province. So the Grand River Conservation Authority has kind of final say over what happens on rural and agricultural zone land, I believe. And so we're focusing on the land that isn't covered by those that we can kind of affect the most change on. So that would be basically anything within a settlement area with some bleed out potentially into private landowners who are on the fringes who want to participate.
Sorry, and just one more question. People driving the rural roads of Woolwich see those yellow tubes everywhere. How are we kind of setting aside this program for that roadside tree planting? When we're looking at things like canopy coverage, is there overlap between those two? How are we going to separate those out to see what impact this program is having versus some of the other programs in the township?
So like in terms of canopy coverage impact, that's kind of what you're asking. So because they occur at very different kind of areas, the rural roadside project does focus primarily on, edges of fields, roads running through agricultural areas. So where we're looking to kind of have the next impact is within those settlement areas. I think it's easy to say that there's not going to be much crossover between areas planted under each of those zones, but the likelihood is that there will be a little bit, and it may muddy the waters to some extent. But I think when we're looking at the 2018 report that looked at canopy coverage in Elmira specifically within the settlement zone, we were looking at 16.7% canopy coverage, and we're looking to increase the settlement area canopy coverage through this program, as opposed to the roadside program, which was more just about regreening forest corridors around the roads.
Thank you. Anything else? There's a recommendation, a recommended motion, if anyone wants to move it. Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Burgess. Further discussion? Councillor
Just
Cadeau.
one point of clarification with respect to the recommendations that are there. There's 4 recommendations. Is recommendation 4 then coming off?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor? And that's carried. Good luck with the grant, I hope. I hope you don't run into any roadblocks on that one.
Sorry, Mayor Shantz.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think I was fast enough, just for a point of clarification. Did council pass both the report recommendation and the recommendation from ReForest Woolwich?
Oh, I'm sorry, are they?
They were listed
Substantially different?
separately. If you want to do a second motion for the second one, it's up to council. Unless,
Is the second one not sort of embedded in the first one?
I think it is, but maybe I might ask Ms. MacArthur. I think the
Okay.
intent was that the request is for council to pass both the staff recommendation and the requested motion from ReForest Woolwich.
Okay.
Yes, through you, Mayor, to council. Thanks for the clarification. Yes, in fact, we do want to approve the second recommendation. The more extensive one is important to match the wording and some of the guidelines that are in the grant application, for it to move on to the next stage.
Okay, thanks for that catch. Moved by Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Burgess. All those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, there are 2 items on the consent agenda. Does anyone want to remove anything to discuss? No. All those in favor, or sorry, mover and a seconder, Councillor Grant, Councillor Cadeau, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have a couple of staff reports. The first one, I'll turn to Director Smith. Election advocacy and preparation. Wow, time flies.
Time flies. I was going to say the E word, the 2026 municipal election. So I wanted to prepare this report really mainly for council to take an opportunity at some advocacy regarding the Municipal Elections Act. That act is about 30 years old by the time we get to the 2026 municipal election, and it's been amended in sort of a piecemeal fashion. So a full review is really what clerks around the province are recommending the province do. Of course, we have to follow that act when we're running municipal elections. So there's a few things I noted in the submission that the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks, and Treasurers provided that would have a direct benefit for the Township of Woolwich. So the first one is an overhaul and major update to the Act to ensure it is future-proof. I think that's a really important one. The second in the report is consider how the work by the Digital Governance Standards Institute related to online voting standards would support election administration. And that's one important to us since we have used online voting in the past 2 elections. The third is to remove the 25 signature endorsement requirement. If you read that submission, you can see that the province was trying to solve a problem by eliminating candidates, and in my opinion, what they've done is they've really just created more of a burden for those running for election. The fourth item, sorry, is clarifying the role of scrutineers where alternative voting, like unsupervised or remote voting, is in place. That needs some clarity. The fifth is to review and improve the campaign finance framework, and there's some additional details there, and I think that could definitely use, definitely an area for improvement. And then the sixth one I think would be impactful to Woolwich is to review and improve the third-party advertiser regime. Again, something that would benefit us. The other piece to this report is just to note and give council advance notice of decisions that will be coming before you in the next 2 years. We'll be looking at a council composition and ward boundary review, council remuneration, alternative voting methods if council wishes, the languages that will be used on our notices and forms, a recount policy if one is required, contribution rebates if council wishes to do that, a use of corporate resources policy, and a compliance audit committee. So with that, council, giving you a little bit of a heads up of what's coming and an opportunity to advocate to the province, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. Through you to the clerk. You mentioned council composition and ward boundaries. Are you looking to change boundaries and redefine, I guess, council?
So through you, Mayor Schwarz, that's an excellent question. When we looked, we've already started doing that, looking at ward boundaries. And fortunately, when the boundary was, or sorry, when the council composition was adjusted to have 2 Ward 3 councillors, that actually set us up for success for quite a number of years. So I don't think for the 2026 election, we'll be recommending any major changes to council composition or ward boundaries.
Thank you.
But that report, I'm hoping to have before you in the next few months.
Thank you.
Anything else? Councillor Schwint.
Just following up on that report, will that address all 8, I guess, topics you have in as needed decision? I guess we're less than a year away from campaigning starting officially.
Again, through you, Mayor Schwarz, we'll probably bring several different reports over the course of this coming year. The first one will be the council composition and ward boundary, because that's the sort of the one that we work towards in terms of how many councillors we're electing. I'm hoping to bring everything forward as soon as I can, but it probably will take me the year or maybe a little bit into 2026 if I have to get all that to you.
Can you remind us when the dates are, or approximately? Because I know it used to be January, but I think it's later now.
May.
I believe it is May of the election year that nominations open, so it's not as early as it used to be, but I would have to verify that.
So you'd want to make sure we've got this all done before that date.
Well
I think
before
is
that
where
nomination.
Eric was going at.
Yes, correct.
Anyone else? There is a motion, I believe. Recommendation. Someone want to move it? Or,
Sorry, one more
Question?
question, I guess.
yeah,
Is this the report staff are going to prepare and come back to for endorsement? Or is this something where council wants going to want to have an outside reviewer or the public look at, or how extensive of a process will it be?
Again, I think you're referring to ward boundary review, or
Could be any of them. I haven't thought that far down, but definitely the ward boundary review.
so the ward boundary review. At least at this time, I think we can do that one in-house. But if you're looking for substantial changes, and I mean, maybe when I bring that report forward, if you're not happy with the work we've done, we could definitely go out and look at engaging a consultant. Council remuneration, there's some HR professionals that can support that work if that's something you're interested in. The alternative voting methods, I've actually kept quite up to date on that, so I think I can provide that to council. Languages, I want to look at the updated census before I bring that report to you. Contribution rebates, I might try to work with the treasurer on that, but that can get very expensive if you try to do that. And then the other matters I think I can handle in-house with staff. So potentially council remuneration, and as we're working on the composition and ward boundaries, if I bring that report forward and you think it deserves a consultant to look into that, then you can make that recommendation, or you can make it now if you would prefer.
Councillor Bryant?
Thank you. I'm a little reluctant to bring in outside people to review this and spend a lot of money on it. I don't think we really need to go to that extent for a ward boundary review.
Okay. So Councillor Cadeau?
Taking it a bit of different direction. I thank clerk's office for the work that they've done on this, and really positioning us for some advocacy around this. And with that, I'll move the recommendations.
Okay, thank you. And we'll look for that report on the ward boundaries and the work that you've done, and then we can, if we're not happy with it, we'll discuss it then. How's that? Seconder for the motion, Councillor Bryant. Further discussion? Councillor Schwint? No, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay. We have Jonathan Delicoli, Junior Planner, is doing 2 presentations. He's going to start on the Housing Accelerator Fund initiative. Welcome. Can you press the, yep, there we go.
So this presentation will go over the Housing Accelerator Fund and the progress thus far. So it's our recommendation tonight that council receive this report for information purposes. A little background, in 2023, CMHC introduced the Housing Accelerator Fund, or HAF, a funding program to help municipalities improve their housing. In February of last year, the township was granted over $6.7 million to be distributed in installments over the next 3 years. This funding supports 10 initiatives that will help our housing needs. So since being granted this federal funding, the 10 initiatives have been progressing well. We have also launched several pages on Engage Woolwich to allow up-to-date tracking of the initiatives. And the following section will go into greater detail on the progress of each initiative. So Initiative 1, Development Ready Strategy for Provincially Added Urban Expansion Areas, which is a mouthful. In short, it's Breslau. So currently we've got 3 of the 5 milestones for this initiative completed, and ongoing work includes completing the secondary plan exercise, which will lead to a preferred land use concept plan for Breslau being presented to council in the coming months, as well as eventually the rezoning of strategic lands in Breslau in accordance with the official plan. Initiative 2, which is the framework for the development of underutilized township lands. You likely know it better as the Elmira property purchase. We created our framework for disposition and we purchased the property, which completed 2 of our milestones. We are now in the process of completing the RFP and we'll go to issue it around March. And once we've issued the RFP or released the RFP, we'll be selecting a developer and with that developer will be reviewing plans and issuing a building permit by the end of 2026. Initiative 3, our comprehensive transportation plan, also known as our comprehensive transportation and mobility plan, is underway. We retained Aegis to complete the comprehensive transportation mobility plan. And once they have completed the plan, we will move to pre-zoning specific sites in accordance with the plan to help us with our transit-ready strategies, as well as we will integrate some of the findings into our official plan. I'll quickly note as well that we currently have a survey up on Engage Woolwich that we encourage our residents to participate in. Initiative 4, expedited review with dedicated service for affordable housing. We've completed one of the 2 milestones. Currently live on our website is our affordable housing framework. So any development that comes forward to the township, which includes 10% or more of units that are affordable, will be able to receive expedited review and a dedicated service from township staff. Initiative 5, our mixed-use development design guidelines. We've completed 2 of the 4 milestones. We've retained MHBC to complete the mixed-use urban design guidelines. And once they are completed, that will complete the initiative. To note as well that we have a public open house on Monday, January 27th from 6:30 to 8:30, and encourage everyone to sign up ahead of time for the virtual Zoom meeting. Initiative 6, accessory residential units, also known as accessory dwelling units by the township, has 3 milestones, sorry. They are all completed. On our website currently, we've got an accessory dwelling unit information package to help residents as they look towards building ADUs. It's a very detailed guide, but very informational. And it's live on our website. Initiative 7, our rental housing incentive. We have completed 2 of the 3 milestones. Ongoing work includes continued communication with interested developers. We have had some interest, but no accepted applications yet. And we'll be looking to receive and distribute the allocated funds to eligible projects. As well on Engage Woolwich, we currently have a brochure and application for those who are interested in applying. Initiative 8, Fast Tracking Municipal Lands Program for Affordable and Attainable Housing. We've completed one of the 3 milestones, and ongoing work includes continued meetings with area municipalities to develop a streamlined approval process for affordable and attainable housing, and then following that, the more simple implementation of the process. Initiative 9, comprehensive zoning bylaw update to permit 4 units as of right in R3 or higher zones. This was completed in April of last year when council adopted the new zoning bylaw. And lastly, Initiative 10, our housing needs assessment, which was completed in November of last year, with recommendations including a focus on seniors housing, apartments, and rentals. I'll quickly touch on the funding. So the above table depicts allocated funding thus far, of which most has been allocated, where the numbers in green above represent the remaining funds for the given year, with the total being around 154,000 that has yet to be allocated. We receive funding in installments of around 1.681 million every year for 3 years for a total of 6.7 million. Our unit trend and projection so far. So we've got up here, we've got a chart representing the cumulative housing target in gray. We've also got our 2023 trend in blue and our 2024 trend and then continued projection in orange. So as you can see, the orange line, which is 2024, largely follows the 2023 line, which is below the expected unit or permitted units for 2024. However, based on projections for 2025 and beyond, we are expected to catch up to our target in gray and exceed the target and stay above it. So our housing targets for half total 886 units, of which 455 have to be missing middle and 81 need to be affordable. So as I mentioned, we were rather behind in 2024 on our units. As you can see in 2024, we got 124 units. That number should have been around 300. However, the projected unit count for 2025 is significantly higher, and that is why we expect to catch up and exceed our target. So with the $6.7 million in half funding that are currently being used to advance housing in the township, and ultimately it results, the results can ultimately be observed in the initiatives that we have been working on to complete. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for the presentation. I love the visuals. Questions? Councillor Schwarz.
Thanks for the update. Curious on your graph, you can
Yes.
bring that back up on permits over time. By permits, does that mean a building permit, or when does the project actually become permitted?
Through you, Madam Mayor, CMHC, which is the organization looking at our numbers, considers building permit applications or issued building permits as permitted units. So they are counting issued building permits for units.
So our 2025 numbers are our best projections right now. They haven't happened yet.
Sorry?
The 2025 where it really spikes up, that's our best guess right now. Those haven't actually been issued yet. Or
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So those are the numbers that we do have projected. They're based on a number of development applications that were reviewed and approved in 2024. We're expecting the building permits to be drawn in 2025. So we do have a very comfortable number in mind based on the developments we know that are coming forward.
Anyone else?
If I could add through you,
Sure.
Madam Mayor, that number was also provided to me in around November, and I have heard since then that that number is supposed to be even higher. So we are feeling rather confident that we will be able to achieve that jump.
Thank you. Anything else? That was for information, so there's no motion really for that one. And you're on for the next item too, which is accessory dwelling units. So take it away.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this presentation will be presenting a research summary on accessory dwelling units. So our recommendation is for council to direct staff to incorporate the changes to accessory dwelling unit floor area, maximum lot coverage, height, and number of bedrooms identified in the report into the zoning bylaw as part of a future housekeeping update later this year. So staff undertook research of accessory dwelling unit policies following direction from council during the review and adoption process of the new zoning bylaw. In addition, staff was also made aware of amendments to additional dwelling units regulations by the province. And we sought to ensure that the changes proposed tonight conformed to those new changes by the province. So accessory dwelling units provide communities with increased housing options. And while they do add housing units to the township, it is important that they remain secondary or subordinate to the primary dwelling, as this is their very purpose, being accessory dwelling units. The township policies are generally consistent with other municipalities. Currently, we permit up to 2 accessory dwelling units on a property, and this is in addition to the primary unit, one of which can be within a detached accessory building, so for a total of up to 3 units on a property. Accessory dwelling units in our zoning bylaw are classed into 2 categories, being either attached or detached. You'll have to bear with me, this is a longer slide. So I'd like to remind that it's important to note that the ADUs are only permitted within accessory buildings in our zoning bylaw, and as such, they have to respect accessory building sizes, which is the footprint that they take up on the property. So for attached accessory dwelling units, we're proposing an increase to the floor area percentage and the removal of the 95 square meter maximum floor area. So this adds flexibility while ensuring that the accessory dwelling units remain secondary to the primary dwelling. For detached ADUs, we've proposed removing the floor area maximum once again to increase flexibility. And instead, we're proposing to limit the size to the maximum building footprint permitted in the corresponding zone. So this pointer should work. I'll pull your attention to the image on the left. It's a little shaky, but currently we permit a 1-story without a basement. And if you look below, we limit by floor area in blue and building size in yellow and blue. And what we're proposing is to remove the floor area requirement in blue and to limit it only to the building size or the building footprint. So allowing people to use the entire footprint. And by doing so, we're allowing people to go down and create a basement because there's no longer a floor area maximum. When looking to height, attached and detached ADUs were generally consistent with other comparable municipalities. We are proposing a slight change for detached ADUs, and we're proposing to increase the height for ADUs, for detached ADUs that are located above an accessory building in the agricultural and residential 1 zones to be consistent with comparable municipalities. So I will point here again. So here you'd have an accessory building on the ground floor and then an accessory dwelling unit above it. And this would be permitted through an increased height. And so these 2 zones that we've identified corresponds to the zone where properties are permitted both an accessory dwelling unit in addition to the accessory building. All other zones do not permit an accessory dwelling unit in addition to the accessory building size. Looking to maximum number of bedrooms, we're looking to remove the maximum number of bedrooms, and this is for consistency with other municipalities. Property lot coverage, we're looking to change this to align with new provincial regulations. So we've changed the lot coverage to increase flexibility in the R1 and C2 zones to align with those provincial regulations. And in the agricultural zone, we're proposing to permit accessory dwelling units regardless of the lot coverage, as we thought it'd be best not to increase the lot coverage as it currently stands at 20%, and it would have to go to 45% to meet the province's new guidelines. So ultimately, these changes provide added flexibility for people to build accessory dwelling units, all while keeping in line with other municipalities. So we are requesting that council direct staff to incorporate these changes into the upcoming zoning bylaw housekeeping update later this year. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Grant?
Thank you. Through you, my one question is just when these would go in effect. So would, just knowing with planning of houses and accessory dwelling units, people may be looking at floor plans now and adhering to the older rules. I just want to know where you would be making these changes so that residents would have an idea of when those changes would go into effect.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe we'd be looking at around the third quarter of this year. And a lot of that has to do with other zoning changes that we're looking at completing, including some from the Housing Accelerator Fund. So instead of doing multiple throughout the year, we're going to look to combine them and make a more efficient process.
Okay.
Anyone else? Councillor Schwint?
Thanks. I like the direction we're going on this. I guess one scenario that's come to my mind right now is there's an existing property with a residence on it. And I want to make that the ADU because it's under the 112 meters. It was built, call it wartime housing on a large lot many years ago. It makes more sense for it to become the ADU and have a new primary residence. How would that work in this case?
I'll let, well, through you, Madam Mayor, if I could try and get this answered first, and I'll let Director Freese answer after if she has anything to add. The township would be open to that, subject that it meets all other provisions of the zoning bylaw. We do have one instance at the moment where someone is looking to convert an old house into an ADU. But it still has to comply to all the other zoning provisions.
Ms. Freeze, anything to?
Yeah, no, that is correct. I think that we could probably figure out a way to do that as long as it complied with the zoning. It'd just be a swapping of which one was the primary and which one was the accessory unit. And we just have to make sure that the primary that was built met the zoning regulations as well.
Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, not to divulge too much information about the case we're looking at now, but I guess one of the main issues at the moment is that the property looking to convert their old house into an ADU is located in the front yard. And so that could cause, well, ADUs need to be in the side or rear yard. So in that instance, they would have to go through a minor variance potentially to allow that. But as I mentioned, as long as it conforms to the zoning bylaw requirements, then I think we would be open to that.
My question was sort of along that line. So how do we ensure that we keep the sort of the not the content, but the keep the neighborhood sort of in a I can't think of the right word. Yeah, that's the word. The character of the neighborhood. Thanks. Yeah.
I think it's a difficult balance as we've got a lot of different priorities, I suppose, to balance. We've got residents that want to keep their neighborhood character, but we also have other residents who need housing, who need places to live. And so it is a difficult balance. Staff believe that the provisions that we're putting forth now really don't impact, further impact the neighborhood character, but that the provisions being put forward really simplify the process for people to do what's already allowed.
Yeah, I think what you've got here isn't really changing how we manage that sort of character and the neighborhood. Ms. Freeze?
Yeah, sorry, if I could just add to that. I think a lot of maintaining a character of the area is how it looks from the outside. So allowing a accessory unit in the dwelling and another one in an accessory building. The dwelling, that doesn't change the way that it looks on the outside. The accessory building could be a shed, but then could instead be used as now a accessory dwelling unit. So it doesn't really change the look of that either. So from the exterior view, character can be maintained just by the appearance from the exterior.
And do we have that kind of control? Or if it meets the sort of the technical requirements, can we, do we have to approve it?
Yes, if it meets the technical requirements, we would have to approve it if it met the regulations, but the regulations would control that it had to be either in that accessory building of limited size or within the main dwelling. So that is how we're going to control it, is through these regulations. But yes, if someone met the regulations, then we have to approve it, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you, I was hoping staff could unpack a little bit for me the line under maximum lot coverage. It's at the very top of page 5. Exempting ADUs from the maximum 20% lot coverage within agricultural zones. Can you unpack that for me? What exactly is that saying?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So what we would be doing, I'm just trying to find it here. You're talking about lot coverage? So for the agricultural properties, we would be exempting them from lot coverage for ADUs. And this is for this is because we weren't interested in changing the lot coverage in agricultural zones from 20% to 45%. We saw the 45% as excessive for agricultural properties. We're not looking to have people build on nearly 50% of their farmland, especially when we're trying to preserve farmland. While the other two zones were already close to the 45%, so we decided to increase them.
So just as a follow-up, when you're saying you're exempting it from it, you're exempting from moving it from 20? Is it maintained at up to 20% as the maximum? That's what I just wasn't clear of.
So the 23, Madam Mayor, the 20% remains for all structures on the property, except accessory dwelling units.
Ms. Freeze?
Yes, sorry, so the 20% is the existing lot coverage in agricultural zones, and that is the maximum coverage for all buildings, including accessory dwelling units.
Thanks. Anything else? Okay, there's a recommendation here. Would someone like to move it? Councillor Burgess, Councillor Grant. Further discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. That brings us to passing the bylaws. We have the following bylaws in the hands of the clerk, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and that they be numbered as bylaw numbers, excuse me, 01-2025 to 06-2025, and that they be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. Mover, Councillor Cadeau, second, Councillor Grant. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. That does bring us to the end of the meeting, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Grant, Councillor Bryant, all those in favor? And 18th, 2025. And in closing, Council would like to thank all who participated, attended, or tuned into the meeting tonight. Good night. And we will meet next week, though, for budget.